Hello, everyone. Welcome to Here for the Horses. Glad you are here for the horses. We have a kind of a different, I am going to have homework for you tonight. So that's going to be fun because I know you guys missed that. But it's going to be out of a different, it's not going to be from my clinic. It's going to be out of a book. So we're going to talk about a new book I'm reading, which I'm in love with so far. And I am on page, I'm already marking it up. I'm on page 15 and it's been awesome so far. So we're going to talk about this book. There's the Equine Structural Integration Myofascial Release Manual. Okay. That's what we're going to talk about. And this is by Jim Pascucci, Advanced Rolfer Pascucci, Pascucci, Pascucci. Okay. So, pretty cool book. Any questions before we get started about anything that happened this weekend or this week? Anything going on?
I have a question, just one of the videos that I watched.
Sure.
You were releasing tension in the horse's head, and the client said the horse has been eared. What does that mean?
Twitched in the ear. So they'll grab it and pull on it and twist it, and it causes pain. And so they'll do that to distract the horse from something else they're doing. I've had a lot of experience, not a lot. I've had experiences with that I was able to tell that has happened. Well, the body tells on people is what it does. And so one day I came in to work on a horse who was my regular client. And I come in to work on him, and he was kind of he's a thoroughbred gelding. His name was Tex, and he was sensitive, very sensitive. So he oh, there you go, Heather. Was that you?
Diverticulitis, yeah.
There you go. Heather's Heather's in the house. There.
It's in your bowels.
Yeah. Does she know we're listening to her? We can hear you, Heather. Okay. So his name was Tex, sensitive gelding, little on the cranky side. So he was one that I talk about. He's angry when he releases because he doesn't want to release in front of people. So sometimes he gets mad about it. So he'd be like yawning, but he'd be mad.
How do I find a different speaker?
Oh, there you go, Heather. We're hearing you off and on. Okay, so I came in and I've worked on him multiple times. So then one day I came in and I started his massage. He was one I always had to start from the hind end because he had tension in the hind end that would just shoot up to his pole. So if I started his pole, it would waste a bunch of time because it wouldn't come out until I did the hind end. So then I got to his shoulder and he had a major reaction to me touching his shoulder. And I was like, what is this? And so the trainer was there. And so I said, what's going on with his shoulder? Like, this is wild. He was really reactive. And so I said, what's going on with his shoulder here? And she kind of looked at me and she went, oh, he was shoulder twitched because we had to shave him. And I go, what? And she said, yeah, he was shoulder twitched. And I was like, what is that? Because I had not heard of that before. I've seen the lip and I've seen the ear. She brings out this stick like this, with a rope at the end of it, a small rope. And she goes, you grab the skin and you feed it through that rope and you twist the rope till it gets small and then you twist it around. And I thought, say what? And so I looked her dead in the face and I said, don't do that again. And she kind of knew. Do you know what I mean? Like you kind of know you shouldn't do stuff like that. And then I said, if you need to body clip him, then you just desensitize him to that. You take a little bit of time. And she was like, yeah, we were just in a rush. And I was like, no, don't do that to him again. So, and then I told the owner too, I was like, you can't have that done to him. You can't have that done to him. So, that doesn't need to be done. I mean, it better be life or death. Cause body clipping ain't it. That was sad. That same, oh yeah. So that same, video was where the message was we're going to replace this bad tension with relaxation. That was the point of that video. And you can do that. And you know, with that horse, the one that was shoulder twitched, it was replaced that day. So it's nice that he didn't have to have that tension forever, you know, for a long time. It could have been very long. So that was good. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for that question, Michelle. Anybody else? Okay. So let's talk about this book. I did like it. I'm going to show it again just in case you need to see it. Okay. So it's called, I'm going to read the title to you. It's called Equine Structural Integration, Myofascial Release
How are you
Manual.
enjoying your time with the task force?
And it's by
Well, today wasn't so
Jim
great. We lost Vasily,
Pascucci.
and didn't even get eyes on Rouging.
Deaver, you and he share a past, do you
Jim.
not?
I'm pretty sure you're aware he's a CIA
Okay.
agent betrayed me.
So I want to talk a little bit about this book. It made, like I said, I'm on page like 14 or something like this. This person writes a book. Let's see. This person writes a very professional book in a very easy way to read it. And it's funny because I love the way it's written. I love how clear it is. So they're not trying to be fancy with you. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you're reading books and you're like, man, can you just make this so I can understand it? This guy does a great job. And so I want to just go over a couple things and we can talk about them. One thing he talks about is myofascia. Okay. So myofascia, we talk about fascia. He gives great explanations in here. Okay, so fascia is known as the organ of form. It surrounds, defines, and positions all of the organs, blood vessels, nerves, bones, and muscles of the body to create shapes we see in a body. So you guys know that we did a little live at 5 on fascia, and I showed you the net that it creates, okay? But it's more intricate than that because it surrounds everything. It goes everywhere. It surrounds bones, muscles. It weaves through the body. So we talked about fascia on the fascial planes. It goes in sheets through the whole body. Muscles can attach into it. Okay, so it's pretty impressive material. Okay. So he says there's 2 ways that we can approach it. We can approach it directly, and that's going to be the subject of this book. And we can approach it indirectly through the function of the body as we see in a body changing shape due to exercise. Okay, so in this book, he talks about like direct influence on it. Okay. Let's see. So one thing I liked is he said the work of myofascia release begins with the ability to sense the fascia. We release what we feel with our hands after being directed there by our hands and other senses. Without the ability to actually feel the body, having an anatomical label for what is under your hands is a useless mental exercise. To achieve mastery in this work, we must be engaged in the ongoing enterprise of developing our sensory and palpatory literacy. Okay, so I love that. Here, this is why I'm not a writer, because this is how I reword it. Feel is more important than understanding anatomy. Okay. That's why my ebooks are 9 pages, you guys. I can't even fill it more than that. All right. So that's how I interpret it. But I love the way that other people write, you know, it's pretty awesome. But he's really saying, and I just had a video about this, where I was like, we want to feel relaxation. We don't want to get the horse to touch their nose to the ribs. We want to feel relaxation. And they should be able to touch their nose to the ribs in a relaxed manner. Okay. So feel is more important than understanding anatomy. And that's so true, because why does it matter what a muscle is called, the name of a muscle? It matters if that muscle is loose. Okay. So we use the names of the muscles in order to be able to identify and get information to other people about it. Like they need to be named, right? But they could be named anything. The name isn't as important, other than it's important if you need information about that particular area. Okay. So important, he talks a lot about feel. I love that. This is a little one-liner I liked, and I just put it up on my Facebook like an hour ago. It says, to be able to communicate with the client, we need to speak the same language. Otherwise, we risk working on them and not with them. Okay. So I love that too. Because when you start out as a massage therapist, you can definitely work on them. That's pretty much all you can do, because you don't know how to work with them yet. It's a process to work with a horse, but you can work on them, and you can have good results from working on them. That's okay. But when you start developing your skills and your understanding of the horse, you start working with them. Okay. And that's why I don't put horses in cross ties. I do sometimes, but in general, I don't, because I'm working with them. And I can't work with them if I have them silenced, is what I think that is. Cross ties silence horses. Okay. So I understand in certain situations you need to put them in cross ties. I'm not like, you can't put them in cross ties. But you're working on them. And that's exactly what I do when I know there's a spot I have to work on and they talk too much. I go, I'm going to work on you for a little bit. Shh. I know where it's at. I know what needs to be done. I don't need your input. I appreciate it, but thank you. You can have a nice yawn afterward and look around and nuzzle and bite at and all that stuff. For a little bit, I'm going to work on you, and then we'll get back to working together. Okay. So I'm not putting people down that work on horses. Like, I get it, but I want people to strive to work with horses. So that's where this whole, it started as Elite Equine Massage. That was me. But this whole winning your horse's heart thing, it went from, I want you to know how to massage, to I want you to communicate with your horse to do body work with your horse. It's totally taken its own its own trip. I never planned on teaching half the stuff I teach. about communication and understanding and, oh, that's that, and this is that, and this is how you fix that, and back off, don't back off, get in, didn't plan on any of that. But it's like, you can't do it without. You can't do it well without. So I look back on some horses I worked on when I was first learning, and I wish I could work on them again. Because it'd be a different experience for them. Okay. So I like that. This is a great quote. It says, oh, so this guy learned from Dr. I don't know if it's Ida Rolf. Okay, we've probably already all heard that name at least. Ida Rolf. She's in charge of the Rolfing. Okay, so this quote says, Dr. Ida Rolf, in suggesting that we should not get attached to a particular way of working, said, if at first you don't succeed, get the heck out. I would like to encourage you to follow this advice. Okay, and then he goes on to say, if the technique you are using is not working, abandon it and use another, or go to another place in the body to work. Fascia is a web, and as such, restrictions in one area can transmit their strain far into the web. Okay, so this is where experience and multiple modalities and trying different techniques. Okay, so if at first you don't succeed, get the heck out. Okay, now that can look like a lot of things. So why don't you guys tell me what could that mean? What could, if at first you don't succeed, they're playing on that, like try again. Try again works, but it's how would you try again? So if at first you don't succeed, what's something that you could do differently? There's a lot of different things you could do. Go ahead and unmute yourself or write it in the comments.
Move to a different part of the body.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, so Sue said move to a different part of the body.
I was thinking about change, like sometimes you say, clap or punch, or go softer, go faster, go harder.
Yeah. So change your stroke, what type of stroke you're using, and the intensity and the depth, and, fast, slow, the speed.
Change the horse's body position.
What's that?
Change the horse's body position to see if maybe they needed to release and they're just holding on to something.
Yeah, you could change the horse's body position. I mean, and another example of that is when you're working on the neck, okay? If their neck is straight, it's going to be one thing. If it's turned the opposite way and you're over here, that makes it tighter. But if it's turned towards you, that makes these muscles looser. Okay, so there'd be a good example of changing body position of the horse. Same thing with the hamstring. If the horse is stepping forward, like I'll tell you guys, sometimes I'll say something like, they're kicking me out. They're kicking me out. They can do that on the scapula. If you're working under the scapula, they can kick you out of there real like that. They can go, no, they'll kick you out. Hamstring, if the leg is forward, that hamstring is going to be really tight. If the leg is back, the hamstring is going to be looser. With the hip, if they're standing solid on that hip, on that leg, that hip's going to be tight. If they cock their leg and drop their hip, that hip's going to be loose. Okay. So I have video of, well, it was just that video I put up of Chester recently about how I said that foot might as well be 3 feet down on the ground. When I asked him to pick it up, it might as well have been 3 feet down on the ground. He was standing on it with such intentionality, you're not getting it up. And if you force it, that's when you're going to get kicked. Okay. So changing their position.
Yes. And one of my horses has a little bit of emotional towards a spot on her leg. So when I work on it, she's a little more sensitive, more hypersensitive. And I have found that I have to just completely ignore it, go do everything else. and then come back and just do a little bit with her leg and then do something else and then come back. And then like the third time, she's like good for it. But
Yeah.
it takes her that much.
Yeah, and it's funny, Chester, I'm finding tolerates me working with his legs a lot more when he is eating his food, like his grain, the good stuff. And if I have a halter on him and we're out, or I have a halter and we're out in the arena, he's okay. I can get some nice work on him. But if I have a halter on him and he thinks he's tied to a fence post, much more reactive.
Hmm.
It's wild. He goes from like, cause I think, and I'm guessing, I think he was tied up, like they tied his leg to some saddle or something and probably took him down to the ground. I think he was abused to that level because there is something about claustrophobic. And I was telling you guys that I was working on him at Liberty on this leg stuff, and that's dangerous. I mean, I don't recommend it. But the difference in how much he will allow when he's at Liberty is pretty wild. Like he knows he can get away. He knows I don't even have a halter on him. It's not smart because if that hind end comes toward me, I'm going to have to knock him pretty hard. But the difference between when I put a halter on him and I loop the lead rope, I don't tie him, but I loop it around the fence post. It's wild. The success rate goes down really quickly. So that's how sensitive he is. So yeah, how their feelings about stuff. Okay. So yeah, I mean, if at first you don't succeed, get the heck out. I said something like that. This book is funny because I say things really similar to it. I said something like that in a post about a year ago, probably. But yeah, you have to change it up. Change it up. Change it up. I don't care how. It doesn't matter. Change something so that they recognize that you understand that they don't like that and they can see, because remember, what do I call masters of intentionality? Okay, they're masters. They know intentions. So if they know that you're trying something else to make them happy, or they know that you notice that they didn't like that and you're trying something else, they are much more accepting, and it's wild. It's beautiful is what it is. Okay. So that was kind of a cool section. This was all in the introduction. I haven't even gotten to the good stuff yet. Okay, so this is the first chapter is on palpation. You guys can see what I do to books. Like nobody can have my books after I've done stuff to them. Stuff's all written up. Okay. So palpation. This was really interesting, and some of the stuff I hadn't thought about. It says palpation, the act of touching tissue and that of palpating tissue are two different actions. Okay, so touching and palpation are different. Okay, touch can be something simple like petting your cat. It can also have more of a therapeutic intention to it, such as helping the tissue change. Palpation, on the other hand, is the gathering of information from all senses. Touch is only one of the senses we use. Palpation is the reception of information from the whole body. When we look at it, hear it, touch it, and smell it, I left out taste because I don't use that one. We palpate from the tissue level to the cellular and energetic level of the body. Okay. Then he gave a couple examples. He said, listening to the sound of footfalls of the horse can clue us in to a foot that is being weighted less than the others. It will sound hollow. That's true. So if you listen to the footfall of horses, especially when they have shoes on, sometimes I'll be walking them in from the pasture and I'll be, da da da. And I just go, what the, and I look back at him. The sound of a horse walking is awesome. But when it doesn't sound right, you go, what? You pick up on that sound, that kind of dead thumping, or if they're dragging their feet, right? Those are the two that I notice the most. But especially horses with shoes on when they're walking across concrete in an aisleway or something, listen to the sound because it should not sound hard and heavy. It should have kind of like a little click to it, like a little energy to it. It moves nice. Okay. So just something to listen to if you have that in your environment. Okay. And then he says in this book, I'm going to focus on palpation. I was like, okay, great. Okay. So, talking about palpation, information that we receive from palpation is used to determine the best treatment options. Some of the tissue attributes we can detect through palpation are skin tension differences. Okay. So we talk about that. We talk about, does the skin feel tight? Okay. Does the skin feel tight? I call some areas dead areas. This is why I don't write books. This guy's much fancier than me. Okay, dead areas. When you're sliding your hand and your hand goes, I call that a dead area. That skin doesn't move. That area is not functioning properly. Okay, so skin tension differences. And then sometimes, like on the forehead, right? So skin should move on the forehead and it should move equally. I mean, on the forehead, it moves about that much in every direction that you touch. So you can go up, down, to the left, to the right. Okay. And then some of you may have felt like where the skin, it rolls. So we talk about that on the back, the skin rolls and then it stops rolling. Okay. We talk about tight skin on the cannon bones, forehead. Okay. Any fascia that's like pulling the skin down where it just doesn't move in an area, right? Temperature differences. Okay. So it's not just in the hooves that we're paying attention to temperature differences. If you have an area on your horse that's super hot, that's going to draw your attention really quickly. And why is it hot? Or if it's really cold and it feels like there's no blood flow there. Okay. So temperature differences. Tenderness is the area tender to the touch and how much? Edema, does the area have a boggy feeling of edema? I was working on a bay mare and I have a video of it. It was a while back, but I was working on her feet and she had a little edema on her cornet band. So I was like pushing on it and it was like a little pillow. And I go, look at this. And the owner came over and was like, what is that? I go, that's something. So she kept an eye on that. It went away. And it was a bit cold to the touch. Okay. So that's something that when you're palpating, you're going to notice. Fibrosis and scarring. So you guys have probably felt scars somewhere. Sometimes it's on, Georgia has one. They always seem to be around the ankle, like the foot gets stuck in a rope or something, you know? And I don't think Georgia was ever tied up, ever. But they still seem to get their little feet hung up on stuff sometimes. Okay, so scarring. And then you can also find the scarring in the hamstrings, scarring along the neck. Any injury, you'll feel that scarring. Okay. Mobility and motility. Is the tissue easy to move in all directions? That's mobility. Is there an inherent motion to the tissue? That is motility. We'll probably talk about that next week. And then a really cool, this is the last one. It says the 3 rhythms. I think we'll talk about that also just in and of itself. Okay. And the 3 rhythms are cranial, respiratory, and cardiac. Okay. So those are some things that you can look at for palpation as a guide. Palpation gives us a clue to a puzzle that we are trying to solve. Doesn't that happen as we're going through the body? We're always looking for something that doesn't feel right. The more, oh, wait here, let me see. Aha, detection. Okay, I'll get to that. Palpation sequence. So this guy uses a palpation sequence and his sequence is detection, awareness, concept, and strategy. And then it goes back to detection, awareness, concept, and strategy. Okay. So that's how he does his little diagram. Okay. So it starts like that. Detection, awareness, concept, and strategy. Does that remind anyone of another practitioner? It reminds me of Masterson method. So I looked it up just to make sure. So Masterson method talks about search, response, stay, release. That's his that's his little square of circles. So he talks about search. You search for the spot. This is Masterson method. You search for the spot. You find a response. Okay, so you're looking, and then you find a response, which would be like a blink, because that shows tension. And then you stay there with Masterson method, and then you get a release. So that's Masterson's method. I thought it was funny when I read that. So his is detection. So detection or search, kind of they're similar. Awareness would be the response, or you understanding that something doesn't feel right. Concept, and then strategy. Okay, so detection. The skill of detection comes from knowing what to expect when the tissue is normal, so you can determine when something is abnormal. That makes sense. And we do that without thinking about it, I think. At this point, if you've been doing it for a little while, you know when you're running your hands over a horse, if something feels weird. Okay. So the only issue that some people can run into is if their horse is really tight all over, they might have a harder time understanding that their horse has some pretty serious issues. Okay, so they need to kind of be helped out with how to be like, no, this is how it should feel. So like one good massage should be able to loosen some tissue up and then say, this is how this should feel, right?
I have a comment on that. With the young horses and then the old horses, sometimes I feel something on the old horses, and then I go, I'm going to go feel that on the young horses to see, because I feel like they have less stress and less, tightness in them. So it's like, I'll compare.
Yes. And it's funny because sometimes with the significantly older ones, their muscle tone's not as good as the younger horses. So they can feel flabby almost also. So sometimes you gotta be careful because you don't want to think that your young horses should be, lacking tonus or anything. But yeah, I compare a lot. And then I try to remember, different horses, different breeds, just like people. You can't compare people either. Some people are run very tight and some people run very loose. So yeah, but you should be able to get a baseline for your own horse for sure. Okay, so that's detection. You want to detect, and you use knowing what normal healthy tissue feels like in order to detect unhealthy tissue. Okay, so that's where a little bit of experience comes in, a little bit of running your hands over some horses in a lot of different areas to say, because some people sometimes say to me, like, should this be tight? And I'm like, nothing should really be tight. It doesn't matter, where it's at. So every part of the body is going to be a little bit different, right? But nothing should be tight. Nothing should feel tight. Everything should feel like it moves okay. All right. The next one is awareness. This is the ability to concentrate your palpation to make some sense of what you're experiencing while at the same time becoming more cognizant of what your senses are reporting. Okay, so just taking full on awareness of what you're feeling. That's why, as you're running your hands over the horse's body, you go, whoa, what was that? Okay, what was that? Was that a bump? Whoa, that felt tight. Was that a trigger? Okay. So you'll keep kind of going back to it. And I see you guys do it in videos. You don't even know you're doing it. But it's like you're rubbing and then you kind of go, oh, what's that? And then you kind of rub some more and then you go, oh, what's that? It's like your hand keeps going back to that same spot. I've seen you guys do it where the horse is responding, but you can't see the response in the horse's face, but I can see it on the video and you're still getting it. It's really, and you're still going back to that spot. So you're feeling something and I'm seeing something. It's really fun. Okay. It's like you guys know just based off that. It's cool. Okay. So, concept. Conceptualization. At this level, the sense perception is replaced with a mental model of what you are experiencing. This is both a benefit and a liability. I thought, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're saying there. So he went on to explain. The benefit is that you can start to enter into the intervention phase, okay? Having decided what it is you're working with. The liability is the tendency to become blind to what you're experiencing based on your modality, training, and ability to keep an open mind. That's awesome that he brought that up. That's so good. Have you guys ever noticed that anytime you learn something new, all of a sudden, every horse that you have either struggles with it or has it or something like that. Okay. Or like I see it, I'm not joking, you guys. I see it in the vet world where all of a sudden every horse has like a lateral collateral ligament damage or something like that. Like they go in phases. Like now every horse has, what's that one with the withers? Where the withers hit each other, something spine. That was a big, yeah, that was a big,
Kissing spine.
yeah, that was a big, like every horse had that all of a sudden. It was really weird. And then there's the suspensory ligament damage. Like every horse has suspensory ligament. They just go in these weird phases. And I'm always wondering, like, why is that? Why is that happening? So I kind of pay attention to these. I mean, they're not they're not like, hey, let's make this one popular. I mean, I know that's not what they're doing, but it just seems like they come in these weird bundles where like 30 horses. I never heard of something before, and then all of a sudden the next 2 months I hear of it 15 times. You know what I mean? So I don't know what that's about. But that's the liability, is that you have a tendency to become blind to what you're experiencing based on your modality, what you have learned. Okay. So as a massage therapist, I'm looking at everything through massage therapy glasses. So I was working on a client's horse, and she said, this horse keeps sticking his tongue out the side of his mouth when she's riding and doing these things with his head. So I'm looking at all these things from a massage therapist point of view. Okay. Ends up the horse had some strange growth in its gut that was like made of all these little weird, like it had gristle in there, it had joints in there, it had a little bone. It was like a ball of disgustingness, okay, in his gut. And it was causing this chain reaction in his body. Well, I never would have found that, right? I'm a massage therapist. So it's my view of the situation was completely blocked by my own modalities. Okay. So that's where the liability is. And then also your ability to keep an open mind. I mean, I kind of went into that situation going, I don't know. I'll check a couple things out, but I didn't have any confidence, when it is definitely, muscle related. I can generally pinpoint that pretty quick and have a fair amount of confidence. But when it's some random thing, I don't know. Half the time it takes forever to figure out, right? Okay, and then the next one is strategy. Strategy is the information gained from palpation feeds the development of a strategy of the intervention you'll make. It is the continuing process of palpation feeding strategy that brings your work to life and separates it from a learned routine that is applied by rote. If you guys watched that video, I think I called it something like "Watch Me Struggle," or this one took me a while, or it's something like that, where I was like, this one was hard to figure out. I called it something like that. It was the little white Arabian And it was like a 15-minute video of me trying to figure out why his back was so tight. And I went through all 4 of these, boom, boom, boom. And I kept looping around, okay, right? Because on this, they're all connected. They keep looping around. Okay. So I would find something, I didn't like it. So then I would feel around. Yeah, that's not normal. Then I would have a strategy. I would try it and execute it. Well, then I'd go back to feeling it's still there. Let me try again. So I'd get a new idea based off what I know, execute it, feel for it again. Oh, it's still there. And I did that like eight or 9 times with this horse. And then finally, the belly lift of all things was what he needed. So his little back was like jammed together and like pushed down. So he was like jammed like this. And then I was trying to loosen it up, loosen it up, loosen it up. Nothing. I was trying the hamstrings. I did a tail pull, right? I grabbed his little ears and I pulled his head forward. Like I was trying everything. And then I went to underneath the belly, lift his belly up, and he went pop, 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 pop. And then he went, oh, okay. So then I was like, oh, please. And I went back and felt it. Got it. I think I did something like this. Yes. Okay. Because that was a lot of work. So that's what you're going to run through is this, like, what is this? Oh, I don't like that feeling. Huh. Okay. That's not right. What is something I can do? Then your strategy comes into place. Things that you guys have learned. I'm going to try this. Then I'm going to try this. Then I'm going to double check it. I always say double check your work, right? Check your work. And then if it's gone, awesome. Make a mental note of what you did to fix it. Cause that's always important. Cause then you're going to apply that to another horse. If it didn't fix it, what else you got? Okay. So that was kind of cool. All right. Oh, yeah. So the last one I'm going to talk about is pressure versus depth. And then I'm going to get into your guys' homework for this week. Okay. Pressure versus depth. Many times in my work and in my teaching, I'm asked the question, how much pressure are you using? I get asked that a lot too, actually. There is a common misconception that the pressure one uses will determine the depth you are working. In reality, what determines the depth one works at is the speed that you use to approach the tissue, your intention, as well as the pressure. Okay. If you quickly press hard on the tissue, you risk creating a reflex arc that will hold you out of the body. Okay, does everyone make sense of that? Understand that? So remember when I have a video and it's called "Get Your Pointy Finger Out of My Back"? Okay, when people do this thumb thing down the horse's back and they go, oh, they're sore. Are they? Or do they just not want you rubbing your thumbnail down the center of their back? So I don't use that method. I do not use that method because he's talking about it here and I didn't actually know that that was something. Okay. So that's the reflex arc. Okay. So he says here, if you press hard on the tissue, you risk creating the reflex arc that will hold you out of the body. This is often mistaken for pain by people palpating too quickly. It's actually more of a muscle spindle fiber reaction. So we've talked about muscle spindle fibers. You'll end up fighting the tissue at a level of the reflex, thinking you should be pushing harder and getting nowhere. If you don't use enough pressure to overcome the dispersing of the energy by the high, okay, that's a different part. So Masterson method talks about this too, is that his method is used to go underneath the defense mechanism of a horse. Okay. So that's why all of his work is very soft and slow, because he's trying to go the body, if you go too aggressive on something, kicks you out of it. Goes, no, That's gonna damage something if I allow you in. So it kicks you out. And then you don't get to have results. Okay? So that's pretty cool that he talks about that. Okay? And then to continue on, it says, if you don't use enough pressure to overcome the dispersing of the energy by the hide, the fat, and the fascia, you won't be able to get enough energy to the area to affect change at the depth you want. You have to balance speed with pressure while actually working through the tissue to get the change you want to achieve. So that's why it's nice to play with speed and pressure. Okay, because something might need something kind of hard and fast friction style. Something might need something very, very slow. That's why my advice is normally to do the opposite of whatever you're doing. Okay, so I talk about that. If you're going soft and slow and you're really pissing the horse off, go fast and hard. So soft and slow, go fast and hard. If you're doing rubbing, do pounding. Okay, just do the opposite. And then, you know, so you're here, the horse doesn't like it, you jump to here, the opposite. The horse doesn't really like that either. Go here. They don't really like that either. Well, then go here. Find it somewhere. Find it. So I've had to, a couple times, I was doing something, you know, kind of rubbing. They didn't like that. So I went right to pounding. They most certainly didn't like that. And then I went to, okay, I'm just going to do this. Okay. And I do that pretty quick because I don't need to have a horse rearing up on me. I mean, I don't mind too much, but it's not really fun for the owner who's like, ah. Okay. All right. The other item that determines your depth is your intention. Intention. This is going to be our homework. Okay, your intention is simply that you hold in your mind as your objective for that particular touch. If you have strong intention to work with bone, then you'll be working with the bone even with light touch. Okay? Your intention will work as long as you can maintain complete contact with the horse. This method takes longer to affect change in the tissue, if only because it is more subtle. Okay. There is also a point where if you wait long enough, you'll feel the entertainment of the tissue to your touch, and you'll be affecting deeper levels without increasing the pressure. This, however, can take a long time, and the horse may not stand still long enough for it. Okay. So, your homework. You're going to be intentional about palpating 3 things. 1, bone. I want you to palpate bones. I want you to feel for the bones. So go all over your horse's body and see if you can palpate the bones. Can you feel the wing of the atlas? That should be easy. That's that bone that sticks out behind the pole. Okay, wing of the atlas. Can you feel the vertebra on the neck? Okay, and can you feel it make its arc? This will be fun for people with wildly different horses, right? Because I talk about, you know, it's cute that we have these little paintings of horses and muscle charts and all that, but does anyone's horse here actually look like one of those muscle charts? Maybe if you have like a thoroughbred, because generally they're based off thoroughbreds, I feel. They're just like elegant and tall. Okay. Can you post a video on colic points in case it's a mild thing? We can help. Yeah, that's from DePaulo. Yeah, I can put that up. So you're gonna palpate bones. So can you find the scapular spine? Okay. Can you feel each wither that is palpable? So it's not, you won't be able to feel the first couple, but you can feel like 3, 4, 5, and 6. And depending on your horse, you might be able to feel more. Can you feel every rib? Can you feel the point of hip? Can you feel where the vertebra in the spine change directions? What? Yes. They change directions. Can you find that spot? Okay, look on your charts. Look on your charts. See if you can find it. There's a little squishy spot where they change directions. Okay. Can you feel the different bones of the foreleg? Can you feel the hip joint? Where the big, can you feel the big plug-in points? The tuberosities on some of the bones? You should be able to feel it on the humerus. You'll feel one on the femur, the hind end. Okay, can you feel the pointed buttock? Most of you probably already have. But get like a good feel of it. So palpate the bones. The next thing I want you to palpate is going to be muscles. So take out your muscle charts and see if you can feel the specific muscles. So you should be able to feel the brachiocephalicus. That one kind of goes down the bottom of the neck there. You can probably get your hand around it. It's like a pork loin, right? Going down the neck. Now with your real thin horses, your thinner style horses like Chester, my little Chester Pants, his brachio is just tiny. It's just, ugh. Okay, George's is like beefy. Yeah, exactly, Nancy. Yours are all going to be beefy, Nancy. Your whole hand, yeah. So see if you can feel those muscles. Take your muscle charts out and see if you can trace each muscle. Okay, and then the last thing I want you to feel for is like the skin and the fascia. Okay. So just see if you can only influence the skin. See, and then see like what reaction does your horse have to that? Okay. What reaction does your horse have to that? He said to do it on like a human, but I was like, blah. We do everything on horses, okay? The only thing we practice on humans is pounding. That's it. We just pound, pound, pound. That's it. Okay. So practice it on your horses. See what's different with each horse. A lot of you have multiple horses. Okay, that's your homework. Feel free to throw some videos up or do a video of something that you find really interesting, you know, as you're going along. I did a whole session with Chester on just this was inspired by this book actually, because he was just talking about intention and stuff. And so I was spending some time with Chester and I would just go through his whole body and I was, you know, doing effleurage. And anytime I found an area on his body that felt tense, I just stopped and I just stayed there. And it was pretty wild, some results I got, because he, at first ignored me that I was doing that, but I just stayed there and I wouldn't move off that spot. And then he released without his permission, like his body released that tension. And so I go, all right, I got him. So I just kept doing that. I did it for like a half an hour. And I found spots that I knew about. I found spots I did not know about. And I found spots that he was hiding. He was trying to hide them. Okay. He's trying to protect them. And it was interesting because I found a spot he really didn't want me to mess with too. That was interesting. So I had to back off even more. So the amount of release he was getting toward the end of that session was pretty awesome. And it was coming really fast. So at first it was like, no, I'm going to ignore you. And then I just stayed with it. And then he'd give like a little release. By the end of the session, his head was down, his eyes were closed, and he would just immediately respond. It was really cool. Okay, so that's like intention, like searching out and just being intentional with no like skill behind it, just focus. and intention. That was cool. Okay, so yeah, play around with that stuff. If you have anything cool happen, write it on the coaching community or send it to me and I'll put it up on the coaching community. No, I did not videotape it. I need to start videotaping him more because he's doing cool stuff. You know, he's doing cool stuff. And I get a little discouraged because I still can't pick up his back feet, you know, and it's been a while. I normally fix horses by this time. But he's doing a bunch of cool stuff and I'm really kind of getting down to the deep, dark parts of it. And I can tell that, so I do need to videotape him. Yeah. I do have a video. I did find that video of why it's important to pick up the back legs, like I say. I did find that one, so I'm going to put that out for you guys. It was awesome. Okay, any questions on this week or any comments on the book info?
I like it.
Where I'm kind of new, where do you just get any muscle charts or skeleton charts and go
Teresa,
from
I'll
there?
send you some cool ones.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Send me, do I have your email?
I believe so. I registered with it.
Okay, so I don't even know if I don't know how to do that. That'd be a good learning experience for me. I will find it. If not, I'll find you on Facebook.
Okay, sounds good.
I better write
Thanks.
that down because my memory's not so good.
I would like one too if you have time.
Carrie, yeah.
I plan on joining your class for January, so
Sweet.
yeah.
Carrie,
I think
and-
that
Nice.
if you have access to the clinic, I think you provided some in the clinic material.
Yeah, Carrie doesn't yet. Teresa, I don't know if you have my clinic yet.
I haven't.
Okay, so I'll send those to you guys.
Thank
I
you.
sent those out in the sore back series too.
Thank you.
I mean, they're just the ones I use. You can Google equine muscle charts, but
Sure.
I like mine. I don't know. I think mine are
Okay.
good, but I learned on them, so I'm biased.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, cool. Then if you're on the coaching community, then post any cool findings that you have. If you are not, then message me and then I will post them for you. I don't put stuff like this on the public page just because I don't need the world giving their opinion on everything that we do. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. Nice seeing you all. Have a
Thank
good
you.
week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.